The ice is melting, and with the new shipping lanes emerging, Greenland transforms from a frozen outpost into the ultimate strategic asset in a ruthless, unseen contest for global leverage. Forget the official narratives. The map reveals the true agenda. This is Alpha Signal. Beyond the headlines, beneath the lies. In 2019, Donald Trump floated the idea of buying Greenland. The media, predictably, laughed it off. Just a real estate tycoon's wild fantasy, they scoffed. Fast forward to 2026, and he's brought it up again, but the headlines, as usual, missed the real story. Trump wasn't the first to eye this prize. He was just the latest in a very long line. In 1867, right after buying Alaska, Secretary of State William Seward looked into buying Greenland. In 1910, the Taft administration even considered swapping the Philippines for it. And in 1946, Harry Truman actually offered Denmark $100 million in gold. That's roughly 89 metric tons of gold, or nearly $13 billion in today's money. When the American superpower keeps trying to buy the same piece of land 3 times over 150 years, it's not a joke. It's a cold, hard strategy. Recently, Greenland's foreign minister proudly stated the island is open for business, but not for sale. So, Marco Rubio is flying over next week, not to chat with Danish officials about Greenland, but to lay down the new terms. His visit isn't about finding common ground. He's there to tell them how it's going to be. They'll call it a strategic partnership for the cameras, a convenient lie. But the truth is, it's a brutal redefinition of who calls the shots. The Americans aren't looking at the pretty views. They're studying the map. And specifically, a line that didn't even exist until the ice started melting. For all of human history, the northern sea route was frozen and impassable. But as the ice recedes, it is quickly becoming the most valuable stretch of water on Earth. The maths is simple, the advantage undeniable. Moving a container ship from Shanghai to Rotterdam via the Suez Canal takes a grueling 48 days. Through the Arctic, that drops to roughly 33 days. It's a shortcut that cuts the trip by 2 weeks. Industry data shows a clear picture. For a standard container ship, this Arctic shortcut cuts about $2 million per voyage in fuel and operational costs. But the real prize goes far beyond just saving money. Those 15 extra days mean quicker turnaround times, allowing ships to make more trips each year, and a huge boost in overall shipping capacity and revenue. This isn't just efficiency, it's a game changer for global trade. So, who wins in this new Arctic scramble? First, Russia. They are now setting the rules and charging fees for essential navigation services, making them the de facto toll collector for the entire route. Second, China. They get a fast, direct route to their biggest customers in Europe. Third, Europe itself, especially northern ports like Rotterdam, which are about to become major economic hubs. But for every winner in this new game, there's a loser. For decades, Singapore has been a critical hub for global trade and is often called the gas station for the global economy. The maritime industry makes up about 7% of Singapore's GDP. If the Arctic route opens and diverts even half that traffic, Singapore faces a permanent 3.5% contraction in GDP. Think about it. During the 2008 global financial crisis, Singapore's economy still grew by 1.1%. Now, imagine a financial crisis that just never stops, hitting them even harder than 2008 did. However, to dismiss Singapore entirely would be a huge mistake. It isn't merely a gas and servicing station. It's a high-tech, financial, and strategic hub. Singapore will undoubtedly pivot, leveraging its other strengths and its undeniable utility to American strategy against China. The question isn't if they'll find a way to remain relevant, but how quickly their economy degrades before their government can effectively adapt to the new geopolitical reality. While closely aligned with American interests, Singapore quietly trades with China. Its goods trade with China alone accounts for roughly 20 to 30% of its GDP. This isn't a one-way street. Singapore exports higher-value industrial products like integrated circuits and specialized machinery to China, while importing a mix of manufactured goods, electronics, and refined petroleum. This balancing act highlights the complex reality of smaller nations navigating the interests of global powers. So, this brings us back to Greenland. As a new superhighway emerges in the Arctic, it poses a new strategic challenge to the United States: the prospect of a trade route largely controlled by Russia and China. Now, Russia claims vast swaths of the Northern Sea Route as its own, a claim the U.S. and others fiercely disputes. The truth is, direct American control over the entire passage is impractical. Therefore, their focus shifts to controlling the critical choke points, the exits, to control who uses the route and under what terms. Whoever holds Greenland controls the GI-UK gap, that is, the gateway between the Arctic and the Atlantic. If the U.S. gets Greenland, they would be able to interdict Chinese and Russian trade. But controlling the trade route is just the sanitized justification. The true objective is American strategic dominance. China is historically a land power, internally focused, and building walls to keep the world out. Russia is different. Russia doesn't build walls, it builds buffer zones. The Russian strategy has been simple: push the border outward until it hits a mountain or an ocean, because if it does not, someone will invade it from Europe. The United States, though, expertly wraps its interventions in all this noble talk about promoting democracy, a story that, time and again, just happens to line up perfectly with them getting unlimited access to vital resources. Greenland, in this move on the global chessboard, gives the U.S. an unmatched forward strategic position. It lets them push their influence and power deep into the Russian Arctic and directly into areas China cares about. Will the U.S. take Greenland by force? Unlikely. They don't need to. They simply need to make an offer Denmark cannot refuse, or perhaps encourage a change in leadership. But let's play the devil's advocate. What if the U.S. were to take aggressive action? How would NATO react? They would do precisely nothing. We're constantly fed this comforting story about NATO being an alliance built on shared values. The truth, however, is NATO's collective identity primarily functions to legitimize U.S. strategic objectives, which, time and again, involve getting unlimited access to resources and crucial trade routes. The truth, plain and simple, is that NATO is just a bunch of nations whose foreign policy is tied directly to U.S. interests. If the U.S. decides to take Greenland militarily, NATO's response would be a showy, formal protest, quickly followed by internal moves to fall right in line with the U.S. This will be sold to the public as diplomatic calls to prevent miscalculation or miscommunication, a convenient lie. But here, we tell you like it is. It won't come to open war. It doesn't have to. The United States, as the only global superpower, can often achieve its aims without overt force. Greenland's strategic value isn't just about a new piece of land. It's about tightening the squeeze on a critical part of the geopolitical chessboard. They just need to carefully build a narrative of strategic partnership or some other official, easy-to-swallow explanation to keep the public calm. They will, as always, conveniently paint Russia and China as hostile actors, even as these nations are just pursuing their own entirely predictable interests within the existing American-dominated global power structure. This is Alpha Signal. Subscribe for the reality beyond the narrative.